In this video, we're going to talk about how to solve quadratic equations with tables and graphs. So remember that the zeros of a quadratic function can tell us the solutions. So what we need to do first is set the quadratic equation equal to 0, which gives us ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So if we look at the table that represents y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, the values where y equals 0 tell us the solutions to the equation. Because you see what we've done here is we've replaced the 0 with y, so wherever y equals 0 is going to be the solutions to this equation. So for example, if I look at the table of values for y equals x squared plus 6x plus 8, you can see I have two values where y equals 0. So those corresponding x values, x equals -4 and x equals -2, will be the solutions to the equation x squared plus 6x plus 8 equals 0. So we're going to use this idea to solve quadratic equations with tables, and we're going to be doing this in our graphing calculator. So we're going to start off by making sure that our equation is set equal to 0, and then we're going to press the y equals button and enter this equation in our calculator. Then when we click second and then the graph button, that will open up the table of values, and we'll scroll through the tables until we see the values where y equals 0. The corresponding x values will tell us the solutions to the equation. So let's use this example. So you can see here that this quadratic is already set equal to 0. So I'm going to go ahead and enter this as y equals x squared minus 3x minus 4 in my graphing calculator and look for the values where y equals 0. So I just go to y equals and I have this here. So I'm just going to clear that. And then I'm going to type x squared minus 3x minus 4, and then I'm going to click second and then the graph button to open up the table of values. So you can see here I have one value where y equals 0, and that corresponds to x equals -1. So x equals -1 is going to be one of my solutions, and let's look through the table and see if there's another place. So you can see that here 4, 0 is another point where y equals 0, so that means that x equals 4 is another solution to this quadratic. So remember, a quadratic can have two solutions, one solution, or no real solution. So now you can go ahead and pause the video and try doing this example on your own. So I went ahead and entered this in my calculator as x squared plus 2x minus 15. So then I click second and then the graph button to see the table of values. Notice that -5, 0 is a place where y equals 0. So that gives me one of my solutions. And then if I keep scrolling, I can see that at 3, 0, I have another place where y equals 0. So x equals 3 is another solution to this equation. So we can also solve quadratic equations by graphing. Remember that quadratic equations can have one real solution, two real solutions, or no real solutions, which we can see from the graph. Because remember that the x-intercepts tell us the solutions to the equation. So you can see here this graph in this first image has one real solution because it has one point where it intercepts the x-axis, and that's going to be x equals 4. You can see the second graph has two real solutions because it does cross the x-axis twice, and the x-coordinates of those points, x equals -3 and x equals 2, will tell us the solutions. This graph you can see right here in this third image is never going to cross the x-axis, so this quadratic will have no real solutions. So to solve quadratic equations by graphs, I think it's really a lot easier if you use Desmos, because if you click on the points in Desmos, it tells you the coordinates. So what we'll do is set our quadratic equal to 0, so it has the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And then we'll type this into Desmos as y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. And then if you click on the points where the graph crosses the x-axis, you'll see the coordinates. The x-coordinates of the x-intercepts will tell us the solution to the equation. So let's try this example. Let's solve x squared minus 8x equals -12 by graphing. So I always need to start off making sure that my equation is set equal to 0. So I need it to be in ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 form. So I can do that by rearranging some of these terms. So for example, I'm going to do the opposite of -12, and I'm going to go ahead and add 12 to both sides. So when I add 12 to both sides, I get x squared minus 8x plus 12 equals 0. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the graph. I have x squared minus 8x plus 12 equals y, and that's the equation that I entered in Desmos. So when I click on these 2 points, you can see that I have two x-intercepts. The coordinates are 2, 0, and 6, 0. So that means that this equation has the solutions x equals 2 and x equals 6, right? Because those x coordinates of the x-intercepts tell us the solutions to the equation. So now let's try solving x squared minus 12x plus 48 equals 12 by graphing. So I have x squared minus 12x plus 48 equals 12. Once again, this is not set equal to 0, so I'm going to go ahead and do that by subtracting 12 from both sides. So when I subtract 12 from both sides, I get x squared minus 12x. 48 minus 12 is 36, so I have plus 36 is equal to 0. So I'm going to go now to Desmos and I'm going to type in this equation. So I have y equals x squared minus 12x plus 36. And notice that this graph only has one x-intercept, and that is at 6, 0. So that means that this quadratic only has one solution, and that's going to be at x equals 6. So now you can go ahead and pause the video and try doing this example on your own. So remember, in this equation, we need to rearrange it first. So we can do that by subtracting 10 from both sides, which gives us x squared minus 3x minus 10 equals 0. So now if we go to Desmos and type this in, we have y equals x squared minus 3x minus 10. And you can see that this graph does cross the x-axis twice. So we have intercepts at negative 2, 0 and 5, 0. So we have two solutions, x equals negative 2 and x equals 5. So once you set a quadratic equation equal to 0, so it has the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, you can use tables or graphs to solve it.